KPFA can commit to free speech as long as we all can agree. Who needs debates while we're all in such straits? Who needs discussion? Not me.
My name is Steve Zeltzer. I'm a member of KPFA. I'm a producer of Work Week, which used to be on KPFA but was removed, and there is no longer a labor show on KPFA, which is supposed to be a pro-labor station, which raised the question. But anyway, we're here today to protest the failure of KPFA to have the election debates, the candidates of the local station board on the air, and for members to be able to hear who the candidates are, and which is a requirement of the bylaws, actually. And this has been ignored by the management of KPFA. They also refused to put on the results of the last bylaw election, corporate bylaws proposal that was on the ballot. And it turns out, as a result, we just called our press conference, and what do you know, yesterday they did put it on the air. The Renee Carter about the result of the last month's election results of the bylaws. So it's a victory. We can claim a victory right here. So it's sad to say that you have to have a press conference outside of KPFA to get them to do these kind of things, which are required under the bylaws. But we're here today to speak out on some of the issues facing the KPFA listeners, the membership, about what's going on at the station and why they need to participate and get involved in the election. So without further ado, we're going to have some of the candidates here speak out on the issues of the election. So first candidate is going to be Donna Carter.
I'm Donna Carter. I've been a KPFA listener forever. I think I remember listening to kids shows at 11. But I'm concerned that KPFA's base is narrowing and that the programming does not totally reflect the community we live in, and that we need to pick up the speed and join the rest of the movement in the United States and speak to the issues on the ground level with great enthusiasm. So I hope that KPFA and Pacifica will air the candidates' speeches, but if there will be some here today who will speak as well. Thank you.
And we need the nurses. Unfortunately, nurses are being burned out in this pandemic. And I know at City College, I've been involved in a fight to protect City College, but they actually wanted to shut down the nurses program at San Francisco City College. Can you imagine that, trying to shut down a nurses program in the middle of a pandemic? I mean, I think it's kind of the craziness of capitalism. Privatize, shut down the universities, the colleges. So our next speaker is Lisa Milos, who is a member of UPT, rank and file member, and an interpreter, and she's also a candidate.
I'm Elizabeth Milos, and this is the first time that I'm actually running for office. I believe for anything at any other time, except for when as delegate. What I want to say is that I received an email from the so-called Protectors, which Steve said, let's call them the pretenders, because that's what they really are. They're pretenders. Why are they pretenders? Because they're pretending to protect KPFA, when what they're really doing is they're draining the resources of KPFA. This is what came out of their recent email that came out. They're insisting that they won in this last election. Doesn't that sound familiar? Sounds familiar, right? Okay, they're saying New Day is contesting the that decision, and will use all available political and legal means to get the vote yes, NDP bylaws changes recognized and implemented. This is going to be the third time that they're going to try to drain the resources. Now, let's answer a question. Why do you think they don't want to air the debates on the air in KPFA? Because on the debates, there were several things that were brought forth. A lot of the candidates from Rescue Pacifica were able to contradict their discourse, because they have a so-called social justice discourse, and they're saying that they're representing the listeners. Let's get something straight. The reason the New Day bylaws vote lost was because it did not win in both classes. It's a California Corporation Code issue. In order for it to pass, it needed to pass from the listeners as well as the staff. And the reason is because the staff have more to lose. It's their job. And so if they voted against it, that should be respected. They're two separate classes, and so it would have had to have passed both in order to pass, and it didn't. So they did not win, they lost. And what is it exactly that they're trying to propose? They're actually trying to take listener power away. Their bylaws changes try to take listener power away by reducing the membership within the national board of the listener station board representatives, reducing their overseeing powers, where you would not even be able to evaluate the general managers. For example, the 4 officers to head the Pacifica board for the next 3 years in red would be chosen in advance by new day station treasurers, and they would no longer be included in the PNB Finance Committee. Those are just a few of the things that were presented at the debates. The other issue is, the last time I remember being right in front of here was when we actually had to denounce the fact that they had not paid the damn assessor's taxes for 7 damn years. And then they claimed that it was the fault of the Pacifica National Board because of a supposed name change. In fact, Tracy Rosenberg brought forth and contradicted that with actual truth, that the name change happened in March. Meanwhile, the taxes were due in February 15th, so they had not paid the taxes even before the name change. So that wasn't the reason. And they offered there was no accountability. No accountability. Not from Maria Negret, not from Quincy Jones, nobody. So now, a whole new slate of Rescue Pacifica, many of whom I'm joining, who have been long-time activists, have been fighting tooth and nail to make sure that this remains the only independent, truly independent station and network, together with Pacifica, that exists in this country. We cannot continue having the Democratic Party destroy workers and the movement by taking over and creating it into an NPR-style station. There's a reason why people fought here in 1999 in front and camped out in front. And they're pretending, those pretenders, so-called protectors, they're pretending to represent those people. They are not. They are pretenders, not protectors.
Thank you, Lisa. And I wanted to report that we've had some success because, as I said, the KPFA manager, Quincy McCoy, refused to put on the results of the election for last year's election for the corporate bylaws that they were pushing, which they said was going to save KPFA. And these would have eliminated democratic rights. Renee, the election supervisor, put a card out together, and they refused to play it on KPFA's air to inform the membership about the results of a bylaw election, which affected Pacifica. Why would they do that? Why would the manager of KPFA refuse to report on the air the results of an election? Except that he didn't really want them to know what the results were and what had happened in the election. And furthermore, this last corporate bylaw election that they pushed, which many of the programmers unfortunately supported, was also defeated by, as Lisa said, the fact that the staff voted against that, and nationally. So they refused to put the results of that election on in a cart that Renee, the election supervisor, had made. Well, as a result of us calling our press conference today for a protest, it turned out to be on the air yesterday. So I guess this, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, because they did put it on. And now we have a situation where Sabrina Jacobs, who has supported the shutdown of WBAI, which is another thing the management supported. In fact, the manager sent $80,000 of KPFA money to a law firm in New York to keep WBAI shut down. And that was never reported to the local station board by Sharon Adams or the manager, that $80,000 was spent to keep WBAS shut down. So these machinations that are going on here at KPFA have to be confronted, and also there's no finance committee at KPFA. So what we had in the last election is that the people who supported the bylaw election, the board, local station board, Carol Wolfley and these other people, and Christine Higgins, who was a former representative, is now as chair of the board, actually sued to have a state judge, take over KPFA. So, I mean, you put it in the hands of a judge. Previously, when I was on a board, they said we have to go into bankruptcy or we're going to be liquidated. This is Sabrina Jacobs and these people. And we videotaped that. Lo and behold, the next month they said, we're not going to have any more videotaping. So this is transparency. You actually videotape a meeting and they say we're going to have to cancel the videotaping. This, again, is an attack on democracy. So we're here to say there has to be more transparency, there has to be more democracy. There should be reports from the local station board on the air at KPFA. Instead, they're replaying the same old programs. So our next speaker is Pete Ferruggio, former ILW member on the executive board, and he's also running. Welcome, Pete.
I was out of California for 10 years, and I came back around 2016. And I was a long-time listener to Pacifica stations wherever I could get them, going back to 1967. I came back here and put on the Berkeley station, KPFA, and I was disgusted to hear constant talk, Russiagate. This bullshit story cooked up by the Democrats because they lost to the psychopath like Trump, because their politics are so anti-working class and so horrible that people don't want to vote for them. So this station, which has been infiltrated by the official Democratic Party through the Wellstone Club and who knows what else, and that's what really turns me off. That's not what an independent radio station is supposed to be about. For example, instead of covering the ongoing struggle against privatization where I live in Oakland in the school district, and it's been going on for several years against the billionaires who are trying to take over our public schools. Instead of covering that story, what they cover here is they spend money and send a reporter to Washington, D.C. to cover the Democratic Party's baloney circus of impeachment hearings when they know damn well they can't get rid of that guy because they don't have the votes in the Senate. And they brag about it, gavel to gavel coverage. And all you got to hear all day long, just like if you listen to CNN or NPR, was a bunch of blowhard Republicans and corporate Democrats pontificating about, basically the politics of the two capitalist parties. That's disgusting to put on an independent radio station. So that's why I'm running as a member of Rescue Pacifica, as most of us are who are candidates, to get rid of this clique that supports this corporate management and return KPFA to the traditions of Pacifica, which is to be independent of the capitalist parties and represent the truth and represent and defend the interests of working class people. So that's why we're trying to get airtime for both sides to state their positions. They don't want to do it because their positions come across to a lot of people as the baloney that they are. And they don't want anybody to hear a different point of view like ours. So I encourage people to continue to demand of KPFA management that they dedicate more airtime to the people running for the local station board, both sides. Thank you.
One of the things about the management at KPFA and their supporters is that they're doing wonderful. They're doing great things. The question is why has the membership of KPFA declined from 16,000 in 2015 to 12,000, around 12,000 this year? And think about the decline in membership in a period in which you have mass upheavals, you have the Black Lives Matter, you have the rise of fascism, You have struggles against evictions, and there should be a housing show on KPFA right now on the issue of housing. With all these struggles going on in this country, the threat of a world war, with the crazy attacks on China and Russia and other countries, and the threat against Venezuela, in the middle of that, the actual membership of KPFA is declining. We say it's because of the programming. And one of the programs that was removed unceremoniously from KPFA was the only real theater show on KPFA. It was removed without notice, without evaluation. And by the way, the supporters of KPFA who are running the Protectors group, really the Pretenders group, have not had an evaluation of the manager, Quincy McCoy, in 5 years. That's one of their jobs, to have an evaluation of the manager. They refused to have evaluation of the manager, and the manager refused to have valuations, or the program director, of the programs. So they're not really doing their job. That is part of their responsibility. That's what they're paid to do. They're not doing it. There should be a program council where the community, where programmers, where management can come together and put on new programs. But the one program that was thrown off alongside Work Week was Twitwit, and we have one of the members of Twitwit, Carol Denny, who has a few comments to say about her program and the one comedy program they had on KPFA. Welcome.
Other than the evening news. Yeah, I'm Carol Denny. I was the main songwriter and one of the live crew. We had about 15 theater workers, actors, singers, and musicians who came together weekly on Sunday nights. And what kills me is that we weren't really told why we were suddenly yanked off the air. We were just suddenly rescheduled to never. And the other thing that's curious to me about that is that there was no more flexible show than we were. We were handed literally a script right before we went cold on the air and had to act it out and read it and improvise as a part of that too. So we were so live, so ready to try to absorb anything that they wanted more of or less of, although we were pretty hard on the Democratic Party because they're funny. We thought they were a very worthy target, as most politicians are. So I wrote a short little song just to prove to the KPFA management that I've learned my lesson. It's called Only Hire Artists with Nothing to Say. It goes, only hire artists with nothing to say, and art that says nothing at all. Otherwise, murals by Diego Rivero show up on your institute's wall. They're hard to ignore once they're up there. They're frescoes, so they weigh a ton. The best subject matter is something that flatters your board members, yes, everyone. Songs, my friends, should be soothing. Your workforce ideally are sheep. It's best if a song says that nothing is wrong. It's best if it puts you to sleep. Images should be relaxing and remind you of things that you like. Pictures of people enjoying each other and never of people on strike. And the chorus goes, artists should try to be quiet, avoid creating unrest, only sing songs about getting along, and instrumentals are best, my friend, instrumentals are best. Ours is a world that is fragile and easily knocked out of whack. If we don't focus on staying in place, we're easily thrown off the track. Help keep this world together by creating artwork that's banal. Stick to what people agree with. Remember, it's best to say nothing at all. It's best not to broadcast unpleasant debates so people don't have to get mad. Let's just agree that we all disagree and keep quiet so nobody's sad. KPFA can commit to free speech as long as we all can agree. Who needs debates while we're all in such straits? Who needs discussion? Not me. Artists should try to be quiet and avoid creating unrest. Only sing songs about getting along, and instrumentals are best, my friend. Instrumentals are best.
You really need some humor in this day and age. I mean, desperately, we need some humor and comedy. We need more of that on KPFA, and removing Twitwit by the manager unilaterally was really a slap in the face to the KPFA listeners and supporters of this program. And what was it replaced by? Does anyone know? Probably not, because...
Turn it on Sunday nights if you have insomnia.
If you have insomnia, turn it on Sunday night. It'll put you to sleep. So maybe it was replaced by something to put you to sleep. So one of the issues on the KPFA local station board is the need to have reports to the membership. And a lot of people don't like to listen to programs, debates, the local station board, but we have on our slate, the Rescue Pacifica slate, Daniel Borgstrom, who is a terrific chronicler of what's going on at KPFA and not going on at KPFA, and he actually takes excellent notes on the board meetings and he gets it out to the public. This is something that listeners should be entitled to. In fact, as I said earlier, there used to be reports to the listeners by the KPFA local station board, but the management doesn't like that. They don't like the local station board to have reports to the listeners because it could be too dangerous. They might learn something. And also, the manager is required under the bylaws to have reports to the members. He doesn't do that. Quincy doesn't believe, not only should he not have reports to the members, but he doesn't even believe in staff meetings. So there are no staff meetings for years. No accountability. He's afraid of the staff. He's afraid of having staff meetings. But we have Daniel Borgstrom, who is also a candidate. So welcome, Daniel.
Thank you, Steve. I'm Daniel Borgstrom. I'm a candidate. That is, I'm running for re-election to the board. And I want to say there are some people, who talk too much. There's also people, like myself, I'd like to think, who write too much. There's people who maybe don't exactly like what we write. At a recent LSB meeting, the majority, which are call themselves protectors, they call themselves KPFA Protectors. I think we could call them general GM protectors, protectors of the general manager. They voted to censure one of our board members who had written an article about the goings-on at KPFA. Well, someone else had written an article and he wrote a rebuttal. They censored him for the rebuttal. And we're sitting through this here, and I'm listening to this, and this, and I said, well, look, if you're going to censor him, you should censor me too. I write articles. My job as a board member is to represent the listeners, is to report, to ask questions and report back to them. I mean, our job as board members is to oversee the station, and that includes asking questions. Now, and as I say, some people don't like questions. The other side definitely does not. Now, what I'm here to ask is that the station play the cards, play recordings from both sides, from all candidates, not just our side, but also the other side. Let's have a fair, let's tell the listeners who's running for the board who's running in order to oversee the station. And there seems to be some problem with that. Now, if they don't air them, what that happens is that the side with the most money, and that's not us, by the way, we're Rescue Pacifica, we're not wealthy. The other side seems to have a lot of money. We don't know where it comes from. We'd like to know. We'd love to know. Hopefully, eventually, we will know. Maybe too late. But they have, if in any election here in the United States, whether it's municipal, state, somebody running for senator, congressman, president, whatever, the side that has the most money tends to win. When that side doesn't win, I mean, in those rare occasions, it's kind of it's kind of unusual, and it's a news item, kind of like man bites dog story. The side without much money won, and that's not the way we want to do things at Pacifica. We want to have democracy that's not where speech is not money. Where money is not speech. Now, you probably know that the U.S. Supreme Court has decided recently that, well, money is speech. Well, that's not what we want at KPFA. And if these don't get aired, that means the side with the money is going to have a tremendous advantage over us. So that's why I'm asking that this gets aired. We've had this ongoing problem of trying to get through to the manager, ask him, right now that's what we're asking him. We'd like to ask him, and as board members, we should be asking him questions about various things at the station. About a couple of years ago now, there was a whistleblower, Tracy Rosenberg, who brought up that the station's property taxes had not been paid for how long? Was it 7 years, 6 years, 7 years? Okay, now this manager, he's been here I guess he's been here for 5-7 years, maybe 7 years now. And what does he know about this? We just want to ask him. We're not accusing him. We just want to, hey, General Manager, will you please talk with us, and we'll find out who's behind this. Now, what the other side is doing is accusing Pacifica of that. Now, I do think that there's a bit of guilt to go around all around. People didn't notice it, but the manager of the station is where the buck stops. Well, I mean, it should stop. It doesn't stop, obviously. Now, the other side is bashing Pacifica, saying all sorts of bad things about Pacifica, bashing it. And that's not helping us. It's not helping anybody. Well, obviously they feel it's helping themselves. But again, let me just say that I would like to see our carts. We call them carts. That's those 1 minute. They're 1 minute recordings by each candidate. Each candidate has made one. I've made one, and so have all the others. And we'd like to hear these played.
Does the manager ask questions?
Pardon?
Question the manager? Do you have a chance to question the manager?
No, we don't have a chance to question the manager. A couple of times in the past couple of years, he's supposed to come to the meetings and give a report, which he occasionally does, and then we have Q&A, questions and answers. Well, at the most recent one, he refused to give take any questions, and then the protectors, the general manager protectors, I guess you could call them, they said, okay, if you want to ask questions, you can send them to the secretary, and she'll pass them on, and he'll repeat, and he'll answer them at the next, in the next report. Well, we have questions we'd like to ask right now, whenever he's there. And he's not taking these. We have to go through these general manager protectors. They call themselves KPFA Protectors, general manager protectors, pretenders, whatever. Anyway, we want to, I think it's, since we are elected to oversee the station, he should, and one of our jobs is to evaluate that manager. Since it's our job, we would like to ask him those questions.
One of the issues that has come up is the question of Pacifica, because the protectors or pretenders, whatever you want, are saying that the real problem with KPFA and the network is Pacifica, although they were in charge of Pacifica for many, many years. So they've attacked Pacifica, said that Pacifica is wrecking the stations and selling out the stations, and Pacifica is doing this and doing that. Well, I think that's false, and we have with us by phone Lawrence Reyes, who's on the Pacifica board from KPFK, and one of the things I want to say is Pacifica Fight Back, which I'm a part of, has built a network of producers around the country who are working together to produce Pacifica programming from the producers around the country. We have to get together nationally. We should have a 24-hour Pacifica channel with programs from KPFA, from WBAI, from the different stations. And this is something that would strengthen Pacifica, so it's not just KPFA, it's all the stations and affiliates combined. So we have with us Lawrence Reyes, and he's going to say something to address these issues and others. So welcome, Lawrence.
Thank you, Brother Steve, and I'd like to thank our KPFA allies in having this action and highlighting the crisis in democracy that now exists in Pacifica in regards to the democratic process and governance, and also taking our network to the cliff. Some people, they either want to rule or ruin Pacifica, and as we saw as we fought back this referendum, and where we have advocated for democratic processes on the Pacifica National Board, I and others have been fighting to enfranchise, you will, if you will, the candidates that are being blocked from being on the air with programming that is repeated throughout the day, and not having that airspace allotted to the candidates throughout the network, and not only at KPFA, but we have that same issue at KPFK. So what I would encourage your allies to do, because I was told at the Pacifica National Board meeting last week that nobody's complaining, that apparently there's no problems. But we know there are systemic problems where gatekeepers are keeping people at the gates and not allowing them in through those gates. So what I encourage you to do is if you have a legitimate complaint, first of all, there's a Google Doc that the National Election Supervisor has provided to file complaints about the election process. And also, I want you to write the edpacifica.org in order to highlight your complaints, and also write the Pacifica National Board, PNB at pacifica.org, in order to really, because we are not going to get anything without asking, and for some reason, it seems like we're going to have to be in a fight in order to fight for our democracy and for our rights as listeners, in regards to highlighting the plight of the censorship and the voter suppression that's happening right now in regards to candidates being able to air their cards, be able to articulate their positions as candidates, and be able to inform our listeners, the stakeholders, as to how to vote. So we know that we were distracted by a referendum that was intended to usurp the democratic process of Pacifica. So I would encourage you to take those actions and continue to take the actions that you are taking today in order to enfranchise and inform, not only enfranchise the candidates that are running for the local station boards, because New Day Pacifica did not want that. They wanted to not have elections for a democratic process. So what I encourage you to do is to continue to fight for the rights of listeners to be educated in regards to the positions of the candidates, and for candidates to be able to be heard and enfranchised in regards to being able to articulate their platforms. So I'd like to thank you here from Southern California, here in Los Angeles. I stand in the fight for you. You could also write me. Steve has my contact information, and I will push and advocate. I will continue to push and advocate for listener democracy on the Pacifica National Board.
Thank you, Lawrence, for joining us, and we appreciate that. We need more solidarity between the stations, the listeners, the programmers. We need solidarity for Pacifica Network, not fighting each other and not attacking other stations for the problems that we have at Pacifica. And one of the issues that we are addressing here today is this campaign by New Day and the Protectors or Pretenders to say that actually what's going on is that there's a conspiracy by the Green Party and Workers' World to take over Pacifica. Now, these are the producers. I mean, the producers here at KPFA should have something to say about it. There's a conspiracy, they argued, in their documentation that the Greens and the Workers' World were trying to take over. Well, I've heard that kind of language before, and it was happening in the 50s when there was a witch hunt in this country. There was an anti-communist witch hunt, and actually KPFA was founded by a pacifist, Lou Hill, to say we're going to fight this anti-communist red baiting. And they had William Mandel, they had communists on the air in the 1950s. Imagine that. Communists were on the air at KPFA in the 1950s. Well, if the people who wanted these corporate bylaws, and many of the producers apparently who agree with this, they would actually believe and put out to the listeners that the Green Party and Workers' World are in a conspiracy to take over Pacifica and KPFA. This is really a red baiting, and it needs to be opposed. And one of those KPFA members who is a member of the Green Party is here with us today, Richard Stone, who's also a member of the letter carriers, or the American Postal Workers Union. He's a delegate to the Labor Council. We actually, on the Labor Council, supported a motion to defend Julian Assange. And that is important because Carol Wolfley and this board said that we couldn't pass a resolution calling for the freedom of Julian Assange. And I said, why not? Because I was on the local station board at that time. And they said, well, we can't take a position on Julian Assange. We can report it, but we can't take a position. Well, I mean, what kind of position is that? Since you have journalists at KPFA who themselves might be threatened by what's happening to Julian Assange. Anyway, we did not pass that resolution. They opposed it, but it was passed by the Pacifica National Board to support Julian Assange and call for his freedom. So you have to ask, why wouldn't KPFA majority say that we shouldn't call for the freedom of Julian Assange? What kind of position is that? So anyway, we have with us Richard Stone, who was also with the Community Advisory Board. So welcome, Richard.
And what really brought me to run for office was my involvement with the Community Advisory Board. To briefly state, about the Julian Assange, I was actually part of the, the working group that helped, push, push the formation of the resolution with the past. I mean, with the successful that passed through the Pacifica, not through KPFA, and subsequently I helped carry it through the through the Labor Council, because as a delegate I helped push it through. And at that time we were the very first labor organization in America, probably on the planet. There might have been a labor organization in Australia where Julian is originally from that probably passed it, but still we were the only one at the time. So So, like I said, I served on the Community Advisory Board from 2016 through 2019, and a couple of the the meetings the listener response board town halls is what really opened up my eyes and eventually led me to the path to which brings me here today to claim my my stance in in running for the local station board. So I'm really dismayed about the fact that and surprisingly, when we actually had the first round of the debates, I don't think I could speak for every single debate that actually happened last Tuesday, but it actually went quite well. I mean, the thing is, we did disagree with the opposition candidates, but the fact that we were more prone to stick to the issues instead of all the finger pointing, the identity politics that usually comes from the other side in order to because that's the only seems to be Quincy's and the other Protect Pacific Protect KPFA's it seems like when sides don't really have too much in the line of defense of what it is to save the stations, they resort to identity politics, and I've seen that happen in other organizations, and I can say I'm shocked, but not terribly surprised to see that it's actually happening here. So. I'm going to leave it that and allow others to speak.
Is the Green Party in the conspiracy to take over KPFA?
Oh, yeah, about as much as conspiracy as nothing that I can actually think of. Yeah, I mean. Yeah. I'm gonna pass out green stars at the green stars and red stars at the first LSB meeting once I get elected. Yes, sure. Okay, but also one of the things I would I was also dismayed. Two of my favorite shows, Guns and Butter and Twitwit Radio was two of my programs, and and it's not just the fact that they got eliminated. I'm sure some programs probably get rotated in and out from time to time, but it's the nature of the way that it that it happened, which was very undemocratic and abrupt in fashion. So all these little proverbial 1,000 paper cuts is what made my heart bleed enough for me to run. So I just want to thank you, for the opportunity to allow me to run, and let's just move forward and make sure that our voices get heard in the air of the debates. Thank you.
One of the things, who is doing the hiring here? Because Ahmad Anderson, which was one of their supporters at KPFA, decided he wanted to become a politician, so he ran in Richmond for an office in Richmond, and lo and behold, he was supported by the Police Officers Association, the cops. And he did not win the election in Richmond, but guess what? Quincy McCoy hired him for special projects at KPFA. So this is that's a question he wanted to ask Quincy about that. Why was he hired, and why was he supported by the police? Why was someone supported by the police hired at KPFA? That's what I'd like to know. Why was Amanda Anderson, who got money from the police, hired by KPFA? And that was Maria Negret, who said that she had nothing to do. She had nothing to do with the fact that the property taxes weren't paid. So I guess she came out to ask what's happening here. She had a question, and then she went in when I asked her about Ahmed Anderson. So I guess she doesn't want to answer that.
I wanted to clarify that we're not only asking for 1 minute for candidate statements from both sides, but we're also asking that the actual debates, which were 3 of them, held last week, 1 hour each, among many different candidates, where we were asked, where we brought up very important issues that they be aired. They're 1 hour, they could be aired one time one day, another time another day, another time another day, because they're airing reruns of morning, of shows that are done in the AM, they're airing the reruns in the afternoon. So that slot is available to air the debates. And according to the bylaws, we have a right, listeners have a right to listen, and the candidates have a right to have their debates aired. And we're not only asking it for our voice, but actually the debates include all the candidates. Okay, number one. Number two, what I wanted to also mention is the issue about Russiagate. It's not something that just happened where KPFA, I don't believe it's something that just happened, that KPFA just sent a reporter to Washington, D.C. and made that decision, and that it was somehow or another a random decision. No, I don't believe that. I think that the Democratic Party at that particular time did not want KPFA to air anything else except for Russiagate. Why? First of all, KPFA could have brought out the issue, an analysis, a more in-depth analysis, that if the Democratic Party had really wanted to try to convict or try to denounce Trump to try to impeach him, they could have brought out articles of impeachment that was already set by precedent by Andrew Johnson from 1868, which was incitement to riot, incitement to violence against members of Congress, which President Andrew Johnson did in 1868, and which articles of impeachment were brought against him for that. They could have brought articles of impeachment for the firing of obstruction of justice when Nixon got articles of impeachment against him for firing the Attorney General Archibald Cox. Well, Trump did the same thing. They had no intention whatsoever of doing that. So it was bullshit. It was complete bullshit. And KPFA was airing it day in and day out when they could have been airing something else. Why did the Democratic Party chose that route against Russiagate? Why? Because they sent out who knows how much information in the airways accusing Julian Assange of somehow or another collaborating with Russia, collaborating with Trump, which was complete lies. Why do they do that? Because they want to control the world press. They don't want any press internationally to have any kind of independence of being able to present documents, internal documents from the United States government of violations of human rights. They want to make sure that all the press agencies and all the reporters get notice internationally that if you dare to publish internal documents from the U.S. where that it shows that they're violating human rights, that you can be extradited and served and be sent to jail in the United States, even if you work in another country. That is pure imperialism, and unfortunately, KPFA contributed to it by contributing to the Russiagate scandal. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. And we have today, with the collapse of the United States' puppet in Afghanistan, a crisis going on. But who was responsible for that crisis? It was Democrats and Republicans together that gave trillions of dollars, $2.3 trillion, to fund the war in Afghanistan that killed Americans and it killed many, many Afghanis. The blood on the hands, these Democrats have blood on their hands because they're voting for this war budget that's killing people all over the world, that has sanctions against the people of Venezuela, against Cuba, against these other countries. It's Democrats and Republicans that maintain the policy. So our last speaker is Pete Ferruggio, who's going to make a couple of comments.
It's ironic that they talk about infiltration of the station by the Green Party. What I would like to point out is...
She never said that she asked for debates?
What is this now? Now they're writing special...
Saying the election supervisor never asked that debates be played.
First of all, why are we being sent to a YouTube channel?
Yeah, this is...
Air it on the air. We're being sent to YouTube instead.
YouTube off the air.
Right, we're not asking for
This is the station accountant who failed for 7 years, I would say refused for 7 years to pay the damn property taxes on this building. Okay? And with some baloney excuse blaming the Pacifica Foundation. What I wanted to say was, what hypocrisy to accuse the Green Party, which I have no problems with because they are anti-imperialist, in the spirit of Pacifica. They accuse the Green Party of infiltrating. I accuse the Democratic Party and the Wellstone Democratic Club, the well-heeled Democrats of Berkeley, of infiltrating this station for years. Okay, and it was their buddies on the Pacifica National Board for 10 or 15 years who made all the bad decisions that put Pacifica in horrible debt. And now that the National Board has changed to the advantage of people we support, who gained the majority about 6 months ago or something, now every sin in the world is the fault of the National Board. And they name themselves the KPFA, not Pacifica, the KPFA Protectors, to protect them from Pacifica. Think of the logic of the naming of that, okay? So all I can say is I think it's a disgrace. They love to brag about their evening news broadcast and their famous news department. And like I said, they refuse to cover important struggles happening all over the Bay Area. Like I mentioned, the struggle in the Oakland schools, the struggles against absentee landlords, and now evictions beginning to happen. They just take the line of the Democratic Party. No socialized medicine, which has left the American populace totally unprotected from this virus, and instead they toot the horn for this bullshit Obamacare, which is a gift to the insurance companies. You know, they added a few people to get some Medicaid, but there's still millions of people who can't afford health care. And that's the Democratic Party, and that's where you don't hear a peep about them complaining about it. And if you want to see some gross stuff by the Democrats, go to YouTube and look at Nancy Pelosi celebrating the arrival of Juan Guaido from Venezuela, a CIA frontman trying to topple a democratically elected popular regime. She welcomes him to Washington, and they call Maduro and the leadership of the Venezuelan government evil dictators, including Bernie Sanders. That's the Democratic Party. And look at the squad, the Democratic Party, the so-called progressives. They voted for the military budget. They made some half-hearted attempt to reduce it by 10% or something, and then in the end they caved and they voted for it, instead of putting out a fight. So, to me, that's the worst example of infiltration and subversion of the principles of Pacifica. And they've taken over the station. And that's why we've got to get them out.
Thank you, Pete. And I think we've had a real victory today that the business manager of KPFA, Maria Negret, came here and she said, what do we want? What do we want? That's what she asked. And then we said we want to talk about what's happening at KPFA and the issues on the air. So what did she do? What was her response to this? Her response was to pass out a flyer to us here to view the KPFA candidate statements and debates. Go to the Pacifica Elections YouTube channel. And then she blamed Renee, the election supervisor, for not demanding it. Well, actually, it's in the bylaws that the election debates should be on the channel. It doesn't take Renee to tell them to do that. They can do it themselves. So why was Maria Negret out here? I mean, maybe Quincy will come out too and say, why he's not attending meetings, local station boards meetings. Come on out, Quincy. Come on out, Quincy.
Let's point out, this is a radio station. People should be able to hear about the candidates on the air, not have to go and get on a computer to look at YouTube.
And YouTube has advertising too, by the way. So they're pushing YouTube. Well, and actually their program should be on the air. They should be on YouTube, and it should be a multimedia station, but they've opposed that. I had proposed that the programmers actually tape their presentations and put it out. But, I mean, here we have our money, and I'm a member of KPFA, going to the business manager of KPFA to hand out a flyer that if you want to hear the debates, you have to go to YouTube. That's where you should go. Now, I say to them, no, you shouldn't have to go to YouTube to hear the debates. You should be able to hear it on the air when they replay other programs every day, when they could have the debate. So I want to thank you all, brothers and sisters, for being here. I ask that people contact the Pacifica National Board, Quincy McCoy, and the election supervisor, and call and Lydia Brazon, the interim executive director, and demand that they replay the debates on the air so all the listeners can hear, all the people on the air can hear it. And they do it, the ballots have gone out and the debates are not on. So that means that people who have money are going to get their issues out through cards and that kind of thing.